Take what?
Here I am again from my remote location. I want to describe to you what my living circumstances are. I've been living in the same 500 square foot basement apartment with no air conditioning, heat, or stove going on 31 years now. How can I arrive in a situation such as the one that I'm in today? You have to turn the clock back to 1971 when I was attending the University of Texas in Austin. And I was living in a dormitory called Dobie. And on the top floor, there was kind of an observatory. You could see downtown Austin. You could see the state capitol. I had a friend named Bart who lived at Dobie, and his sister Eileen lived there too. So I was kind of in love with Eileen. I was 21 years old. Bart was her kind of nerdy scientific brother. So Bart showed me this device that he called a laser beam. And he shined it on the wall, and there's this very deep, resonant purple dot on the wall of his dorm room at Dobie in Austin. And he said, I can shine this a quarter of a mile away, and it's just as intense wherever I shine it, whatever wall or surface it goes on, as it is in this room. And I said, that's impossible, Bart. You're crazy. That can't possibly be done. So we took the elevator up to the observatory at the top of Dobie. He took out his laser beam and he let me use it. So he showed me how to turn it on. So I shined the laser beam on the Capitol Dome in Austin, Texas in 1971. Laser sighting in Vietnam was a brand new invention. Being involved in Vietnam was a brand new invention. I was at the University of Texas with my 2S deferment while a lot of other people my age were having to fight in Vietnam. So if you're rich like me and you have a 2S deferment, then when you're at the University of Texas in Austin, then you don't have to go to war. So my family is from Minsk in Belarus. A very, very powerful Jewish family owning a grain mill and deciding not to take orders from Tsar Nicholas II, which caused my great-grandparents to die in prison, and my grandparents emigrated to the United States. So if you're coming to the United States from Minsk in Belarus, and you're the most powerful family in Russia, the government knows who you are. So they settled us in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so we could be back in the Farm Belt. And so through a series of initiatives, I ended up at the University of Texas in Austin. They put me, the government, under data collection starting in 1967 because my first cousin, Larry A. Meisel, when I was 17, he was 26, and he had just founded his company, MDC Holdings, Meisel Development Corporation, New York Stock Exchange. It was a corporation that was basically created by Larry Meisel and his idol, Richard Nixon. So Nixon was elected in 1972, and before he was impeached and had to leave office in 1973, they created MDC Holdings. So Larry Meisel is a first cousin of mine, a very powerful guy, most powerful Jewish person in the world. He sent his children to the Wharton School of Business so they could have Donald Trump's alma mater. And when the Richard Nixon experiment failed, they decided they were going to go with Donald Trump. So Larry Meisel created Trump's CIA file in 1983 called CISPRO, standing for Three Generations of Sister Brother. So that's Don Jr. Trump and Ivanka, and then Vicky and Gary Mizell, and then Courtney and Cheston Mizell. So that's 3 generations of sister-brother. So that was Donald Trump's CIA file set up in 1983. This is getting to my location here in Astoria, Queens, but it's all based on this whole history. So with Larry Mizell creating this company and his partner being George Herbert Bush, the CIA director, they had me coming along as a 9-year following Larry, kind of a CIA program in terminal. You have to realize that, if you're my family, we were part of the creation of the National Security Act in 1933, and my father and my uncle went to Central High School, which was out of their district, and all the families in the Jewish community in Tulsa, they were either at B'nai Emunah, which was the Orthodox synagogue, or Temple Israel, which was the Reform synagogue. And so if you're in Tulsa, which is the oil capital of the world at that time, and the oil industry basically runs the United States. The CIA works for the oil industry, and the oil industry is the largest industry in the world, and we were in the oil business. So, that brings in the CIA. So my father and my uncle go to Central High School. Our company, the family business, was called the Central Supply Company, and then that later became the Central Oil Company. So you go to Central High School, you're the Central Oil Company, and that becomes the Central Intelligence Agency in 1947. So that'll give you some background as to how deep we go and how deep we are into U.S. intelligence. And when you are a creation of the CIA, they're willing to give you any amount of power as long as you follow their orders. And Larry Mizell is a total loyal follower of the CIA, totally loyal to George Herbert Bush, who was the CIA director. And when Bush was elected president in 1988, Larry Mizell and George Bush entered into the executive branch of the U.S. government, and from 88 to 92, and then another 8 years of George Walker Bush after the Clinton administration. So that was 12 years of the CIA taking over the executive branch of the government. Now we're getting to where I live now, but you have to realize all of the CIA operations, all of their programs, their total control over the United States, which is something that John F. Kennedy was very much aware of. John Kennedy was very much aware of the CIA. He mentioned the CIA. His brother Bobby was head of the FBI. And when you investigate the CIA, and you do it with the objective of understanding them and kind of exposing them if necessary, and your brother is doing the same thing with the FBI, you're not going to live in this country. If you contradict the CIA and you become an adversary of the CIA, you're as good as dead. And the CIA is basically in the securities industry. So when I established my securities company in July of 1985, called Mizell Securities Corporation, then you're in CIA land. And so prior to that, I went to prep school in 1967 in Sheffield, Massachusetts, because they wanted to put me under data collection. So for 4 years, from 67 to 71, I was kind of like a junior CIA terminal under data collection. So then when I shined the laser beam on the Capitol Dome in Austin, they took me off of data collection and made me a full-fledged CIA operative by creating my CIA file in 1971 based on that laser beam in Austin. So if you have spent your entire life, your entire adult life, like I have, starting in 1987 and 88, trying to empower blacks and Hispanics, if your mission in life is to create income equality for blacks and Hispanics, you're in the securities industry, then you are a real problem for the CIA, because number one, they don't want blacks and Hispanics to be millionaires and billionaires. They want their education to come from the government, and then they go into the army and serve the military, our 800 military bases, 172 countries all over the world. So when I was living in Denver, I was working for the U.S. Small Business Administration. My office was in the office of Gil Cisneros, and my company president was Frank Martinez, and he was the president of the Colorado Hispanic Media Association. So I made him president of my company if he put me on the board of directors of the Colorado Hispanic Media Association. So I was the only white guy on there, and they were stealing identities now because I was a problem. I was not a Republican. I was an advocate of people like Bill Clinton. They like only Republicans, and they like total loyalty. So I was a big problem. And if you're spending your life trying to empower blacks and Hispanics economically, then you're a big problem for the government. So after my second article on La Voz Hispana Colorado, called Affirmative Action, Capitalist Style, that connected that article to Justice Clarence Thomas. I'm trying to show blacks and Hispanics how to use affirmative action to finance a private placement memo that would lead to a private placement of some capital, and then you could go public on the securities markets, the New York and American Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ. The first two are auction markets, and the NASDAQ is a negotiated market. I know everything about the securities industry because I'm a broker-dealer. I passed all the tests, 22 and 39 as a private placement operative and general partner, and then 7 and 63, which is the general securities license and the blue sky law. So I'm all registered to be a broker-dealer. So my whole career was about financing black and Hispanic businesses. So the first thing they did after my second article, Affirmative Action, a capitalist style, then that put Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court to make sure that affirmative action never transfers to commerce. And then after that, my next article was in Hispanic Business in 1991. Had my picture, and it was a how-to finance your business. So they're not going to take that from me or anybody else. So at that point, they started robbing me of every nickel that I had. I was living in a condominium, $500,000 condos, driving a Mercedes, and then that became a Porsche. And then starting in 1990 and 91, they robbed me of every nickel that I had. They connected me to the Black Panther movement. They forced me to live in poverty, being dominated by the FBI here in Astoria, New York. And so that's been my life, but I never quit. I never stopped. So if you're about the securities industry and you're about blacks and Hispanics, the only government agency where blacks and Hispanics are counted, in the government, black, Hispanic, Asian, Native American women, that's the U.S. Small Business Administration. So I was working for them in Denver with Gil Cisneros. So when I came to New York, Jose Cifuentes was head of the SBA, and I was going to their office at 26 Federal, trying to do the same thing I was doing in Denver, and being under surveillance more intensely in New York, because here is where Wall Street is located. So the last place in the world they would have ever wanted me to be would be in New York, where I'm with Wall Street trying to finance minority businesses, but they took every nickel away from me, so my sister lived in New York. So I had no choice but to come to New York and live with my sister, on a cot in her apartment until I could find an apartment. And, I've been living in poverty for 31 years here in New York, and while my mineral estate has been growing and growing and growing, and my net worth is about $1.3 billion, and I've been living in total poverty here in Astoria for 31 years, but still doing the same thing. So if your CIA file was created by shining a laser beam on the Capitol Dome in Austin, and now you're in New York, and you're still interfacing with the Small Business Administration, that means that the head of the SBA has to be Herb Austin. And then they have to start using Austins, like Austin Powers, who was named after Gary Powers, the pilot who was shot down at 70,000 feet. So they shoot down a spy pilot, because they've been spying on me from 70,000 feet when I was in Tulsa, in my backyard, shooting BBs all the time. So Gary Powers, my name is Gary. So that becomes Austin Powers, the laser beam in Austin. That becomes Steve Austin, Lee Majors, who was the Bionic Man, the $6 million man, married to Farrah Fawcett. And on and on and on. I have offers from oil companies in Austin, Texas, to purchase my minerals. So if you got all these Austins, then you're continuing to do what I'm doing still, and living in poverty and paying the price for doing what I want to be doing with my life, which is income equality for people of color, then this is the price you have to pay. So here I am now, and the ultimate was now we have the Secretary of Defense, because they connected the Defense Department to everything I'm doing, because we have 800 military bases in 172 countries all over the world. So my initiatives are all about Blacks, Hispanics, and Asians, and Native Americans, and original populations. So that ties into all of our military bases all over the world. So they just keep using me and using me and using me. And now the Secretary of Defense is Lloyd Austin, who's a black man. So they have used me since 1988. And they hijacked the mainstream media because we were meeting in the Community Affairs Department of ABC, CBS, and NBC every month. And so they organized the mainstream media through me by Larry Mize, Love the CIA. So the mainstream media is just one television station now, all done through me. And the leader was Jean Galloway at ABC. So that's why Oprah moved her show from CBS to ABC. ABC was willing to let Oprah own her own show because the CIA told them to do that if they're willing to bring her from CBS to ABC. So ABC gave up all the billions that Oprah became worth. Oprah owns her own show, which would have been owned by ABC. So that made her a multi-billionaire because ABC let her have the money in order to use her, and that's how she's been used. So all of the advertisers from the Oprah Winfrey Show are being used to control the mainstream media. So if you're ABC, CBS, NBC, every cable television show, because I had a cable TV show, 21 episodes, and it played all over the state of Maryland on the Time Warner system. So I'm cable television. I came from Denver, which is the cable capital of the world. I know all the cable executives. So they've been able to organize cable and the mainstream, all of the television stations, through the CIA and Larry Meisel. So it's just one big station. So they control the advertisers from the Oprah Winfrey Show. I have a degree in advertising, and you're not going to get $1 billion contract from the auto industry or the insurance industry or the pharmaceutical industry unless you follow their programming guidelines. So here we are in today's world where the media is controlled by the CIA. They control, so many of the public companies now because everybody has to send their 10Ks and 10Qs to Dover, where all the 95% of every public company is created. This is all getting back to my apartment, but you have to realize this was all done through me. I'm the singular source of all of this, my sister in a tangential way. So here we are now, Lloyd Austin, Austin, Texas, the laser beam. Herb Austin, the mineral interests in Austin, Austin Powers, all of these Austins have now led to the Secretary of Defense. Okay, so this is a dangerous situation now here in America, where the U.S. Army is trying to take over the country. So now I'm living in 31 years now in a basement apartment So what are you going to do if you're me? Okay, so here's the key. When I had a computer in 2008, I got computer lessons. The one thing Larry Meisel was willing to do was buy computer lessons for me because they wanted me to have a computer. He's been stealing every nickel from me, and with the help of the CIA, but to get a computer, he paid for it. So I had this woman from the Ukraine who gave me the computer lessons. I can't give you her name, but she has a PhD from St. Francis University. She's a brilliant woman. That's who taught me the computer. So from 2008 until 2010, I was using my computer. So then the computer started acting on its own. The computer was doing its own programming. I created graphics, and the graphics would fly all around the screen and rearrange themselves at the pleasure of the CIA. So I couldn't control my computer anymore, so I just got rid of it. I put it on the street. So then the Department of Sanitation picked up my computer. So DOS, Department of Sanitation, and DOS, Disk Operating System. So then they were deploying my entire CPU. For 2 years, from 2010 to 2012, they were deploying letters from everybody that I wrote to from the memory of my CPU. So now you've got me creating all the intelligence agencies, through all of my activities in this apartment. So I live in a low-tech environment. I gave my computer away. I have nothing but a TV and a telephone and a radio. So they have to use a low-tech technology to keep these programs going. So now when I look into my TV, the TV's looking back at me. All the electronics in my apartment, are organized around my television and radio. So now every voice from the television set or the radio has a corresponding electronic shadow. So then I'm listening to the voices of Larry Meisel and Oprah Winfrey through all the voices of the TV and radio. And then the guy on the top floor is from Albania, which is like Greece, because I live in a Greek neighborhood. So that's how Oprah Winfrey got here. She became Greek, which is anal sex. Oprah Winfrey is anal sex, and that's how she got into this neighborhood, Greece. Astoria is a Greek family. Okay, so that's how Oprah got here. She was created because Larry Meisel's company is all white men that needed women and minorities in order to do the screw job in completion. So Oprah's bio is all connected to me. The color purple, Alice Walker is connected to my best friend, a black woman in Denver. So everything that Oprah does and has done is a CIA creation. She's created by Gina Haspel. So in my apartment, the guy on the second floor is from Germany, the woman on the first floor is from Japan, and I'm in the basement. So who were we fighting during World War II? Germany and Japan. Wiegel has a key to my apartment. The guy on top of him has a key to my apartment. He's been in my apartment 10,000 times. Whenever I say something to my TV, or if I tear up a document, you can hear Wiegel coming down and tromping down the stairwell going out the door. If I do something involved with Japan, then this Toyota girl comes out of her apartment. It's one traffic jam of Japan and Germany and identity theft. I've been robbed of 1.3 billion, which is part of the total of robberies amounting to $275 billion. All the money stored at banks that I've had relationships with. So I'm the entire program. So if you're me, and you're doing the same thing that the last two people were doing that I'm doing. Mike Rupert is dead. He was giving a speech at Portland State. He was exposing the CIA in total. dead. Gary Webb of Kill the Messenger was exposing the CIA because they didn't like what he was doing, which was very much like what I'm doing. So he's dead. Both guys shot in the back of the head, called it a suicide. If you do what I do, and you live where I live, and you can't have a date, and you can't do anything because you don't have any money, and they rob you of every nickel, how do you survive? How have I been able to survive without a date, without any romance, without any normal life, no sex life in any kind of a normal way? How have I been able to survive in this environment where, I've got no pictures, I've got empty walls, desks that my landlord gave me, 30 years going into the basement. Every home on my block is under surveillance. They've got surveillance cameras in every single house. And they've got a telescope mounted on a satellite that's trained on my neighborhood. And so every person that does something inside, like a recipe or buying something from the store, whatever they throw in their trash is part of a CIA program. The Department of Sanitation picks up the trash every day. They show up, pick up one thing, the black bags, pick up the white bags, like every day. Because Department of Sanitation is disk operating system. You throw a disk away in the trash, it becomes cataloged. All the trash in the neighborhood is all cataloged. Everything that everybody throws away. They pick it up, they catalog it, and then that transfers to the trash cans of every borough in the state of New York. This is what the CIA is doing. It's hard to believe, but this is how your money has been spent, your tax dollars, in order to have everybody under surveillance. So you say these kinds of things if you're me, and then everybody labels you as, being mentally ill and having ideas of reference. But this is the reality that I live in. So how do I survive it? If you're connected to the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the Secret Service, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, and the Air Force, and every related intelligence agency and Defense Department all over the world, and ET comes down here, they came to me, and I was set up for this anyway. I have the biological makeup that has made me a receptor for data coming from outer space. And I know everything about the universe from the first second of existence. And I am being communicated with life forms that live in other galaxies. And this is all coming in through my apartment and through the TV and through the radio and the songs that they play and the programs that they have and the colors that they wear. I'm connected to all of these things. And so what's so important about where I live is all I need is for a woman to occupy this space with me. She doesn't have to be my lover. She can live, in a separate cot in the kitchen where my sister lives, when she comes to visit. And she's coming on the 20th. Today's the 15th. She's coming on the 20th, so she's going to be there. If I had a woman living in that space, then her psychic energy would be connected to my psychic energy. It would be hugely powerful for women. So that's the last thing in the world that they want to see, and it's the last thing that I have to get done before I leave that space. If I leave this space of 31 years, they're going to be helpless because President Biden is aware of this program, and he's working to tear down anything new that they would construct and reverse everything that's been going on there for 31 years. In the most boring place you can imagine, but the most fascinating place for me. So I survive because I live in a constant state of stimulation, talking to life forms from all over the galaxy that come in there in the air now and through the antenna and through the roof and everything else. They call my landlord to come in. So I live in a constant state of stimulation in the most boring apartment that you can imagine, and I'm going to be getting out of there sometime, probably within the next 6 months. After I bring a woman in there, I'm going to have a woman, I'm going to have a relationship, and I'm going to have a child with this woman. And this child, believe it or not, is going to be the creators of the universe. Because why did God create the universe, and why is the earth so dominant, and why is the human being the most advanced form of life in the universe? Because God meaning the collection of creators, wants a body. And there's no body like a human body. There's nothing like us anywhere in the universe. And so I treasure my home of 31 years now. If you saw it, you'd think it's a prison. But it's going to be the home of the next branch of humanity. So thank you for listening, and a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.